Hey guys, it's Gui-Nu and I'm back with another video. I'm so sorry that I couldn't get the video out sooner. I couldn't really get a video out sooner because I had a lot of problems with editing and filming. There was a lot of noise and there wasn't time to film or edit and stuff. So this is what I'm doing now today. Let's get into the video. So today's book is called The Black Kids by Christina Hammods. If you see me looking over here at my notes, is because I need to make sure I got everything right, so sorry about that. This book by Christina Hammods reads is called The Black Kids. It's a required reader by a lot of people, like the Nick Stone bestselling of Dear Martin. It's a novel, so for you novel people that really love novels and not little books, this is a perfect story for you. So first, the main thing this book is about is a girl who is black and is in her teens, like 14, 15, 16s, and she's in high school and she has lots of friends. She's growing up to be a young black woman in her life and seeing what the world has to offer and what life is like. This takes place in about 1972, 1982, and 1992. This takes a lot of shape in the 90s and the 80s, so this is a book that was a little bit far from era but also still there. This book goes on about a young black girl who's growing up to live her life, and her name is Ashley Bennett. It takes place in the 1990s and 1970s, also 1980s, right before the 2000s. It is a book that is located in Los Angeles, California, and she's in the family of the Bennetts. It's a kind of middle-class, rich black family who lived down in 1992, and Ashley Bennett is trying to learn what her life is. It all revolves around the trial of Rodney King. Now, Rodney King is a real person a time that did happen in the black community. It was a time where people really started to see the hatred and the torment towards black people.
Guys, what I meant to say in the video was that this was always happening. People knew that there was hate and hurt going on towards the black community from police brutality, but it was during this era that people could actually film it and show the whole world
that was going on from police brutality. And Rodney King was a victim. There were many victims before him, but I think this was when people really started to realize that these things started to happen more than often, and it was not good. Now, his trial did take place. There was a trial for him, and there was evidence to show that he did get a beating from the police, that it was not for any reason besides like racism. So he had a video, there was evidence, and they all went to shreds. They didn't use it, and they were just really racist people back then. And in that time also there was riots for Rodney King's death. The Watts riots that happened back then in the times, and those riots happened because of what happened to Rodney King and that no one would do anything. If you don't know what riots are, they are a time and place like now, like last year or 2 years ago during the coronavirus, where people of color and many people around the world stood up, and in America mainly, because I don't think that happened in many places around the world, but in America they would loot stores and take things and set homes and set buildings and businesses on fire for riots and things like that, looting and riots. And there was a lot of things happening during those times, and the riots were very dangerous for most people, for the black community, for the Asian community, for the Hispanic community, for every community that lived in Los Angeles at that time. It was very dangerous because there was fires and people setting homes on fire and neighborhoods going to flames, and it was a very, very scary time. But there were also protests, peaceful protests during that time as well, that people don't realize, because the news around that time did try to make it seem as though the riots were the protests, that the protests were the riots, and that everything that the black community did to try to stop the hate and the the police brutality towards black people, they made it seem like it was all violence when it wasn't. It was some different things. There was violence sometimes, and there was looting, and there was peaceful protesters as well. And this all happens around the time Ashley Bennett is alive. She is a 14 to 15-year-old girl who lives in an upper town part of Los Angeles, California. She has white friends. All three of her friends are white friends: Courtney, and Kimberly. The two Courtneys and Kimberly, that she calls friends, they were friends since kindergarten and grew up together because of how she was raised. And Ashley is not realizing that in her high school where she lives, she has a very much of a divide in her, the people in her school. So there was like the kids, there's the black kids group, there's her group who grew up as friends for a long time. So the people in Ashley Bennett's family are Josephine Bennett, her mother and father, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. They don't really give their names much in the book. I'm gonna have to really look back at what their names are. It's really hard to find them. And Josephine, or Jo, is kind of a rebel. She doesn't like the fact that her family doesn't really do much for the community around them, since LA is practically on fire. And Jo has a husband named Harrison. Harrison is a white guy, and that's just what he is. And her family doesn't really like that, because back in 1992, mixed marriages weren't really much of what people were thinking about. And as a black family, I don't think that they were very happy, or not that they weren't happy. I think they were more scared of the fact that he was white, because back then that wasn't really something they wanted to deal with, because they didn't know their family would appreciate that, their family would be okay with that. And it was hard to really be okay with that, as Mr. and Mrs. Bennett were kind of fearful in that. Ashley wasn't, because Ashley wasn't really concerned with that, but Jo loved him. And as Ashley saw throughout the book, that Jo and Harrison were pretty much weren't able to be they were interceptable. Or I was hoping I'm saying that right. No one could tear them apart, and that was the love that they had. And during this time, Jo does get herself into trouble. She is, trying to protest, and she ends up going to jail and going into a trial because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, it got her landed in jail. And they have an aunt who is a judge, but she couldn't do much for her. And it kind of tore the family down a little bit at the end of the book. And I just want to bring that up now, because that's not really a big factor. Sorry if people would think that's a big factor of the book. It is a big factor of the book, but, we're talking about Ashley, so not really talking about Jo right now. She's in the book. Yeah. So Ashley is trying to find her way as a black kid in LA in her school, and she finds this guy named LaShawn, and he is pretty much, the black kid. He's a black kid in a group of black kids. He's grew up in the more down and poor side of LA, is what Ashley and her family see, and everyone else does too. He lives with his mother, his sister, and I guess sometimes his grandmother. And he is pretty much a star student. He is going on a scholarship to an amazing university that Ashley wants to go to, Stanford, that she wants to go as well. And she's a little jealous of him, so she makes up a rumor with her friends, Courtney, and Kimberly. Courtney with K, also. She makes up a rumor, or accidentally makes up one, about him stealing during the looting, because he seemed poor. People saw him as a poor kid, but he was also a star student, and she kind of almost messed up his reputation. And of course, Courtney and Kimberly didn't really do much, because they were all white girls. Kimberly was Jewish, but they were all white, and they really didn't have a problem with it, or didn't see the hurt in it, or what it could really do to somebody. And I think later in the book, Ashley saw that. She did. She saw what her words could do to it. I just hope she would have done it sooner, to be honest. And speaking of her friends, Courtney with a K, I believe, is has a boyfriend named Mitchell, who Ashley and Mitchell are kind of in a triangle with Courtney. I mean, they all like each other. Courtney and Mitchell are girlfriend and boyfriend, but Mitchell is, all over Ashley because he's kind of greedy, to be honest. And Ashley is pretty blind to that, and that's kind of sad, to be honest. I know this is a book review, and I'm supposed to be talking about the books, but I'm also going to talk about what's in the books, because it is really sad. Ashley and Mitchell are, technically doing things that they shouldn't, while Mitchell is in a relationship with his girlfriend. And in the book, Ashley's pretty blindsided to that. She knows she's doing something wrong, but she's really blindsided to the fact that this can hurt somebody. And in the end, Courtney does say something to Ashley that is very hurtful. She pushes her in a pool at a dance party when she finds out about this, and Mitchell does nothing to help her, nothing at all. Ashley is just all alone, but LaShawn does come along and help her. It's sad that back then anybody would go for the person that hurts them the most, and not the person that loves them the most and treats them right the most. And LaShawn was the person that was there by Kimberly's side, and Ashley's side through all of it, and it was really sad, to be honest. And as Ashley's learning that she practically is black, to say, she's learning black things. She got her hair braided for the first time. She stopped getting perm, I think. Nothing wrong with it, but she did. And she started learning who she is, really. She talked to her sister. They worried about her sister and things that are going on with Joe. And I believe Ashley is realizing that things are happening. Because in a dire situation, Ashley does get held at gunpoint when she is helping LaShawn at the end of the book to check on his family, and the white cop is holding him at gunpoint for no reason. And she realizes how black she truly is at that point in time, and that she can't go around and believe that she's untouchable. And not to say that just because you are rich makes you think you're untouchable, but at some point in time it does help. It does make people start thinking that they can never be hurt. And in this book, I think she really realized that she can be hurt. She's not just a kid anymore. She's a black kid that people look at differently in this reason. So yeah, and throughout the book she does have a companion or a best friend, or we call her nanny, but Ashley calls her best friend, is Lucia, who is Ashley's nanny. She's from Guatemala. She has a son, Alberto and Roberto, I hope I'm saying those right. And she's wanting to go back to her sons in Guatemala. And to her, Ashley is like a daughter. Ashley is her best friend, and to Lucia, Ashley is her daughter in some way, because they just are pretty much inseparable. And through life, Lucia has been there since she grew up to 17 with Joe. And she is seeing stuff with her own eyes. In this book, they do have Spanish, because she is Guatemalan, and they kind of learned Spanish throughout the time that they've been together. So, yeah. Also in this book, at some point she gets to know, or does know her cousin and her Uncle Ronnie live in the side where her grandma Opal and her grandfather lived. And to talk about her grandma Opal is from the South, and that's where they originated, their family and everything. They started off in the South, and then they moved up to California. And Grandma Opal in the story has been through so much. She's been through Old Watts riots, she's been through massacres, and she's been through everything that you can think of that happened way before 1990 and 1980 and 1970. She's been through it. She has. And Grandma Opal, before Ashley was even 10, she killed herself because she was very sad. She was hurt a lot. She was hurt because her husband died and because of everything that was going on, and she couldn't take it anymore. And in the book you can see how sad her father and her Uncle Ronnie are from this. And as she built up a store. There was a vacuum repair center in the hood, as they call it, and she built it by hand, built it from the ground up. And the riots that are surrounding Rodney King's death come to a point where they burn down Grandma Opal's store because they just had to. They just did it. I mean, it's not right, but they did it. And you can see how the family is devastated in the book from this, because that was the lifeline to themselves, so past to everything that they worked hard for in the end. And I'm gonna go off script a little, but in this book, it's a ride. I cried a lot during this book. Like every other chapter, I would end up crying because it was just sad. It was just really sad, but it was beautifully put together by Christina Hammods Reed. And I just have to say, I applaud her for doing this. I applaud her for making a book so elegant and so beautifully written at the same time. It's the way she wrote it was amazing. And I hope I can write like that one day. I'm trying to, like, better than I am now. And the way she did it was amazing, to be honest. She was in a life of somebody's, and she showed the ups and downs of who this girl was and what she went through, and that she could go through things like this as well, because it can happen to everybody. Nothing is just suppressed to one person. It can happen to anybody. And the way she wrote it is amazing. She really is. And I just want to say to anyone who reads this book, or to anyone who watches this video, to be honest, if you come in this video and read the book and say that it's a phonics book, that it doesn't make sense, and you can say that, but just know that this book is about a time period that took place. It is about a book that the book is about a girl and her family who lived in the upper class side, and a girl who's going through everything that a girl could go through who's black. And it's very sad, but it's also very beautiful and entertaining at that. You know, it's very amazing to see the way that a life could go. If you're new to what a black girl's life is, this is it. I mean, this is not the only source, but this is it. And I also encourage you to go on Button Poetry, or right about now, there is a poem by Kayla Lacey, that I think you should watch her poems. It would fit with this, practically her new one, Code Switch, and it would fit with this, I believe so. So, to be honest, I don't have much to say about this book, but it's amazing, and I want you all to try to read it. It's an entertaining book, but it's also an educational book into what happened back then. I'll show you the book now. This is Christina Hammods Reed, The Black Kids, and it is a beautiful book with, her Ashley on the front. It's her afro hair, and it goes all the way around. And you'll see in the book that this makes sense. Believe me, it makes sense. I didn't know it right before. It was brilliantly poetic, and it shows systemic racism. It shows what a kid's life can look like in systemic racism. So, if you are willing to read this book, if you are willing to see this book, and that is the end of this book review. But I also want to talk to you about something else. Let's go. So, what I want to talk about, guys, is that I am so sorry that I have not made a book review this week at all. It's been a very crazy week. So So, I mean, I can't really tell you the details, but I would like to tell you that I'm very sorry, and I want to give you a schedule. To be honest, I can't give you a full schedule or an accurate schedule until I get on downstates and start doing stuff the right way. Like this outside stuff is not gonna work for you guys. I already know that. It's not even working for me. It's cold, to be honest. It's cold, but I'm gonna get it rolling, get it popping, But I want to tell you that the schedule, I'm going to try to do one once a week for now. Until I get everything situated, I want to tell you guys I'm going to do at least one book review every week. That is the least I can do. I mean, I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I'm trying, And the reason why I decided to do this book by Christina Hammods reads. I'm so sorry if I'm getting your name wrong, ma'am. It's because when I first picked it up in Walmart, I was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. Okay, I just looked at, to be honest, every day when I pick up a book, or anytime I pick up a book or order a book in Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, Target, I look at the cover before I even read it. I look at the cover before I read the back, where the signatures are by all the Los Angeles Times and stuff. I look at the cover first, and I look if it's pretty or not. To me, if you have an amazing book, it should have a beautiful cover. That's just what I look at first. I am very sorry, but I look at that first. And when I saw this book that said The Black Kids, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be good. And I have another book for you guys as well that is not like The Black Kids, but it is a mythology book. So I want to tell you guys that I'm going to do a series, the mythology series. It's going to be on Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, all the mythologies. Because since there are so many mythologies in the world, I thought that this would be a great idea. I'm going to be a mythology series. There's a channel called Geography Now, and I said to myself, what if I did something called Mythology Now? I'm not going to make a channel. I'm not doing that to them. But I'm going to do a series inside my channel called Mythology Now. And it's going to be a series where I do all the mythologies of the world, because I'm telling you this. The mythologies that I found, Japanese, Chinese, African mythology, all the nations of Africa, European mythology, Roman mythology, all the mythologies, there are so many mythologies. And I decided I'm going to do a mythology now. I am, because I think it's an amazing idea, and I think that would be great for mythology lovers. So please don't leave now. But I'm also going to do random books like The Black Kids, and I'm doing another book sooner or later. It's coming up this week, hopefully, that is called The Plague God. It's by sorry if I'm saying this wrong, Chadwa Chada, and he is a writer in the Rick Riordan Presents that is doing a mythology on a Muslim immigrant child by two Muslim immigrant parents that come from Iraq, and he falls into Mesopotamian mythology, and I was involved when I read that book. I'm reading now, but I try to read this book as fast as I can. This Black Kids book took me 3 days to read, and yes, it is thick. My closest time to reading was an hour, so amazing. Okay, sorry, I'm being full of myself right now, but I hope that I'm gonna get through these books, and I'm gonna try to get more. So I want to say bye to you guys, and hope you have an awesome day. Peace, and I hope you watch another video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment for any videos. Ring the bell for notifications, and so you never miss a video of mine. And spread the love so you can all watch it. Bye!